Afternoon. My name is Alexa Vietz. I'm the Centennial Coordinator for the National Park Service, so I have the dubious honor of following that really amazing panel discussion and trying to set up a little bit and talk a little bit about what the National Park Service is doing in response, essentially, to the very compelling case that was just made. And then I'm going to invite our close partner, Grey Group, and Ken Dowling back up to talk more about what we're doing specifically around the public awareness campaign. I think we heard very compellingly and very clearly that awareness is our challenge, and so that's really what we're focusing on. We're trying to create a movement here. It's a near-term movement. It's a movement to engage the public in the Centennial, but as Ken and the director said, it's also a movement to create the next wave of support, visitors, supporters, and advocates for the next 100 years. And that really is the underpinning of everything that we're doing. And so the public awareness campaign that Ken is going to talk about is really a key, significant piece of everything that we're doing, and it's driving our ability to bring awareness to the broader work that the Park Service does and that we hope to be able to continue to build for the next 100 years. I just want to talk very briefly about some of the context of that other work that we're doing that dovetails, I think, very well with all of the points that were made. The first one of those is, in order to create that movement, we need to be digital. We need to go digital. So the National Park Service, as Director Jarvis mentioned, is putting a significant amount of effort into that. We are going to be, I'm excited to say, NPS.gov will be mobile early next year, which for those of you who haven't tried to look at our website on your mobile device, give it a try. You will be disappointed. I'm here to tell you. We know that, and we're working very, very hard to correct that, and there are staff all across the country working very hard at that. That's really just the first phase. As the director said, in the ensuing months, we're going to be also continuing to work very hard to make sure that our Plan Your Visit and the ways in which people engage and essentially come and find out about us to visit is going to be significantly overhauled. So we're really excited about all of that work that's happening, and it's significant. The director said, and I want to underscore this, the Centennial goal. It's about connecting and creating the next generation of visitors, supporters, and advocates. And it's that next generation piece that we just heard so much about. It also underscores this point that was made about how do we adapt our programs. And I think you already heard about what we are doing in many ways, but we've set some pretty significant goals in that regard. It's about engaging the youth, and that's about visitation, there's no question, but it's also about letting them create stories and connect with us all in the work that we do through other means, whether that's internships, whether it's jobs, whether it's volunteerism, all of the things that we've been talking about. So we have some pretty significant goals that we're working on in the next few years around that specifically, and I wanted to share some of those with you. By 2016, we hope to have 600,000 volunteers. I think that's in addition and above to what we already have. We're looking at, I think, more than doubling our youth hiring. There are significant youth hiring goals that the National Park Service and our sister agencies are working on, and that involves, as was said here today, not just us, but the entire community of people who engage the visitor in the park experience. We recognize that we need you to help bring those personal stories to life, not just through visitation, but also through connecting in other ways. I just want to share a story about that, and this I think is when we talk about relevance and personal connection, and we know that someone, when they go to visit a park, it's really important to that millennial generation to be able to share it, and I'm going to quote someone directly who works for me who actually said to me one time, if I can't share it, it didn't happen, right? So from their perspective, if they can't share that picture right away, it's like they didn't have the experience. But I think the other point to make about the hiring and the other aspects of the ways that all of this our parks community can help make those stories personal is something that as a National Park Service employee I see a lot, which is, and I'm not sure if concessionaires and our other partners see this too, but Park Service employees will also often talk about my park. It's kind of a little thing that actually sort of drives me bonkers, right? Because it's the public's park. but they feel ownership over the place they work and the way they present that to the public and the work they do. So I'll be in meetings and they'll say, well, in my park, we do this. Because they have that ownership, because they work there and they invest in it day after day. That's an opportunity that we can create for the next generation so that it becomes their park too. And that's really, really key for this next generation of support. So lastly, I want to just touch on one more thing that we're going to be doing to really engage this next generation, and that is creating what I would call the experiential thematic way of looking at the Park Service. So when we talk about my park, we think, okay, I work at Glacier, or I experienced Everglades. It's not just about those places, it's about the themes and how they connect us together, whether it's heroic experiences, whether it's military service, whether it's Civil War history, whether it's environmental consciousness. All of these things are themes of stories that can be told and brought to light in the National Park Service, and we're looking at our campaign to help us move into that space of talking about ourselves in broader ways and create ways to engage with that experience that's not just place-based. Because if you want to be connecting to that story, no matter who you are and no matter what age you are, it's about understanding the underlying emotional connections, and we have that in spades, as everyone has said. So not only digitally on our websites are we moving to create itineraries and thematic information, but I think what we're going to see as we move into the Centennial and the campaign is that we're going to have an opportunity to bring those thematic experiences to light and help people connect from all walks of life. So I'm really excited about all of that work. I'm going to turn it over to Ken to talk more specifically about the campaign and how you guys can directly get involved, and we'll both be here for questions.
All right. Is this on? Can you hear me? Are we still being live streamed? Yes. Okay, because I'm going to drive this guy crazy because I'm just going to wander around. So welcome, thank you. I'm sure you all just walked in and said, oh, geez, not that guy again. But I'll be your host for the next 30 minutes, and then Hall, wherever he went, is going to talk about some of the activation and ways to get involved. I think that's the place to start, though. We've been working on this for about 2 years now. I think in October 1st was the beginning of our 3rd year on this, which is a fascinating thought since the Centennial is physically in 16. We're launching in the end of March of 15. So we'll have been working on this almost 3 years by the time we get to the actual launch. But now is the time when folks like yourselves can really get involved. We've been doing a lot of the Heisman for the last few months or years saying, let us get our stuff together. Let us get all the right, thinking and strategies and pieces of creative. Now is really the time when we need your support. We need your help in getting that message out there. So what I'm going to do is give you a basic overall feel for the campaign. Hall will talk more about some of the parts and pieces where we think you all can get involved, but we really need your feedback here as well. If you have things or other ways or ideas that you want to intersect with this campaign, that's what today and the future is all about, okay? So I kind of said that. Campaign, let's get right into it. In the last hour and a half, we were talking about, the 3 different subjects. We talked about the Park Service and, whether it's the existing goer or the new generation of people we wanted to connect with. But we talked a lot about the ability to connect, the ability of people having this great affinity for the Park Service, right? For the parks they go to, for the service in general. But there's never really been a mechanism for them to connect in a tangible way. If you go to Disney, right, they talk about tangible memories. That's why every ride dumps into a gift shop, right? You just got off the roller coaster, I want to buy a gift. I remember those tangible memories, right? There has never been an ability for the Park Service to do that. We've got the Arrowhead, right? Don't sell that to people. That is a tried and true, trusty thing just for the Park Service. You guys, as hospitality folks, could not utilize or leverage that, okay? And that's a big miss because you're missing the power of the brand, right? When we did our research, and you guys have done more research than we probably ever have, you find out this is probably one of the strongest brands out there. It's just never been thought that way. It's never been marketed that way. So to bring this together and start kind of training the US government, God forbid, about how to do brand marketing was a huge challenge in the first year, getting them to wrap their heads around there's so much power and vitality in what we have already. How do we take that as the launching pad and go from there? So what you're looking at just on this first slide is a lot of that brand identity work that occurred in the first year to allow people to connect with this brand, to put a better, more consistent face of this brand out there. So a new logo for the Park Service. That arrowhead's never going away, but this is something that can be licensed now, okay? Foundation changed their logo. Remember the old rat in the hat? Okay, that's now the Foundation logo. So that the connection between the brands and the connection between their missions is that much tighter and that much more understood. And then you can see the brand family kind of emerge by the 2016 Centennial logo coming out of that. So, you know, before we even get into developing a single piece of communication, we had to think about all of the touch points of where our consumers, where our friends groups, where all of the concessionaires come in contact with this brand, and how do we start there versus, hey, what's a cool ad on celebrating a centennial anniversary, okay? So that's been our focus from, you know, the get-go is brand development and how does that brand then get pushed out, not just for 2 years for Centennial Campaign, but for the next 100 years, okay? Now find your park, and I'm going to show you a lot of that creative, and we got a cool video that will show you that's better than me talking. Find your park is a campaign theme, okay? As it says, it's comprehensive, multifaceted. That wheel behind me that I can see in front of me is every kind of marketing communication you can have, right? It's advertising, it's public relations, it's digital. We talked a lot about that in the last session. It's event marketing, not just national events, but local events. Really important. We're building a national umbrella, but the strength of this campaign is going to be activating it locally, and it's going to be activating it with folks like yourself. So really important there. Grassroots, part of that. Talent partners, promotions, corporate partners, social media, media partners, all are coming together. We're looking at all of those and synchronizing that to create this campaign. Now, one of the things that, I'm going to show you the video, and then I'll talk more about how that comes to life.
America, land of the free, home of the brave. It's the greatest country on earth. And if the good old US of A doesn't warrant a celebration, then really, what does? But we're not talking about rolling out the barbecue and running around with sparklers. It's not a once-a-year thing. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Because a single day just isn't enough. We're talking a 2-plus-year extravaganza dedicated to a single idea, America's greatest idea, the National Park Service. And in 2016, it's turning 100. Our National Park Service is revered by all, open to all, and enjoyed by all. There are no blue parks or red parks, only American parks. From iconic giants to 400 other sites dedicated to everything from history and recreation to human ingenuity and the struggle for justice. As part of the festivities, we'll be kicking off a movement to support America's national parks, a nationwide crusade that will introduce the parks to a whole new generation of Americans. In fact, literally redefining what the word park means. Is it possible to redefine such a word? We think so, and we're going to prove it with Find Your Park, a mass awareness, multifaceted program that will demonstrate that a park, a national park, is way more than most of us previously imagined. Find Your Park will be everywhere, from traditional and multicultural media outlets like TV, print, and out-of-home, to must-be-there platforms like digital, social engagement, and activation. We'll be educating people on the mission of the National Park Service and its official nonprofit partner, the National Park Foundation, while inviting each and every American to find their park, be it a place, a feeling, a sense of pride, a lesson learned, a playground of epic proportions, or perhaps even all of the above. There will be challenges, discoveries, and invitations for people to submit their own stories. Find Your Park will touch grade schools, universities, and local communities, both urban and rural, across the country. Corporate partners will also be getting involved like never before. Celebrity talent? We'll have plenty of that too. An A-list of musicians, actors, artists, authors, not to mention the First Lady. Does it warrant a parade? You bet. And the Tournament of Roses has got it covered. A TV series? That's in the works too. An IMAX movie? Why not? Quite simply, Find Your Park will infiltrate and work its glorious tendrils into every corner of pop culture and beyond. The question really is, why wouldn't you want to be part of this unique time in the continually evolving story of America? Join the movement by supporting the national parks. It's going to be big. It's going to be great. It's going to be the celebration of the century. It starts now, and with your help, it'll propel us forward for another 100 years.
So, I'm going to say something really crazy, right? All right, we're going to do this campaign officially for the next couple of years. We've got all of those things that I put up there on that spoked wheel, right? And the crazy part is we're not going to spend a dime on media, okay? This is a non-traditional campaign. We were talking about that in the session before, about the need to reach millennials, multicultural, in different ways through social media. I mean, we are spending money, but it's not a traditional buy, okay? We have to engage with them on the platforms in which they communicate with each other, with media, etc. In addition, we are going to have traditional media, but we're looking for media partners to come on board, give us donated space, to be a partner to the campaign, so they will be donating media space. Again, we're not paying for it, we want them to help us carry that message. So these are some of the media partners that'll be a part of this. We're locking up relationships with all of them right now. You see TripAdvisor back there. So it's exciting, but we're finding as we look at media partners, as we look at corporate partners, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for people. People are excited. They want to be a part of this, okay? So we are locking up these relationships, and they will help carry that message. We'll also be working with corporate partners. We're looking at 5 or 6 premier level partners from the corporate community to help us carry that message as well in more of their traditional media or marketing campaigns. So we need help in carrying this message, and that's part of what today is all about. We need you guys to help carry that message as well in whatever ways you can within your organizations. So I'm going to talk a little about the deployment plan so you can see where all of that kind of lays out for the next couple of years. Very quickly, there's a very big master deployment plan, content activation. This simplifies it too much, but there is a very coordinated effort quarter by quarter on when we're hitting different highlights, different key periods like National Park Week, Founders Day, different things, doing some things with our corporate partners, when some media things will be activating. Now, if you think about it, we're going to be out there for 2 years. We need to hit periods and hit them hard versus just having this drib-drab kind of effect out there. We don't want people to just be like, oh, I saw that. Oh, I saw that. When we're out, we need to be strong. We need to be coordinated with our partners, and we need to refresh that creative as we go throughout the next 2 years so that when people see it, they're always seeing something new. They're finding a new way into it, and that's what the campaign's designed to do. Launch is in 2015, end of March, right? We're looking at, and you can see kind of the microsite is under development right now. You're probably the first people to actually see it in a public setting. But the Find Your Park site is meant to be an aggregator of all of that content, okay? We want people to engage and tell us how they found their park. We're going to aggregate all of those stories. We've already been talking with the Park Service and the Park Service employees to get their stories already so we can pre-populate it with how different members of the service have found their park. So we're looking at big press event, a lot of fanfare to get this going at the end of March of 2015. And I will give a shout out to Carlos. You cannot emphasize enough YouTube influencers. When I say that in other meetings, people go, YouTube? Who? Is that a channel? These guys are fantastic, and Carlos's presentation showed the power of what those YouTube influencers can do. So a lot of activity going on in social and with different kinds of influencers that we're going to be tapping into. So you can see in March of 2015, the advertising will go live. It's kind of 3 phases. We'll be building awareness of what the National Park Service is, and I'll show you some examples of that. Phase 2 will deepen that awareness of, more of what the service does. We talked in a couple of the earlier sessions about the need to create that awareness, right? We're not really on people's radar screens, so we kind of have to go out and make sure we shake them a bit to make sure that that message gets through, because even if you don't know much about the Park Service and know about the parks, you've probably seen these things photographed somewhere, right? So putting up a big, wonderful picture of Yosemite, you're going to get a lot of head nods like, oh, that's nice, and people are going to turn the page, or they'll swipe the screen, or they'll move on to something because they know that, but they don't know it in the context of what we're trying to accomplish. So I will show you and explain that a little more as we get into showing you the work. And then, March of 2016, we'll be actually, pumping and talking more about the actual Centennial. So this is what I mean, okay? If I show you a magnificent picture of the Statue of Liberty, awesome! I live in New York, okay? I work with people who live in New York, and they go to the Statue of Liberty, right? And we say to them, hey, when was the last time you were in a national park? And they go, I don't know. And you say, did you go to the Statue of Liberty? Yeah, we went last week, and I took my nephews. And they go, well, that's a national park. So, that's one of our biggest problems with this assignment is people don't understand even when they're in a park that it's a park. Because you kind of take for granted what's in your own backyard sometimes. And again, I go back to the Park Service hasn't marketed themselves as a brand. They're very shy. They're almost like that, Midwestern conservative, like, I don't want to be boastful. We just do cool things, I mean, you guys saw the opening of the memorial out there when the Today Show covered that, right? A few months before that, Matt Lauer was in Hawaii, and they were at the Arizona Memorial, and the ranger took him out there and the whole bit. It was an awesome piece. Nobody ever said National Park Service. Now, how do you have a 5-minute segment about who takes care of the Arizona Memorial and its place in history and not say the words National Park Service? So it's changing that mindset, and we've got to shake people up. So this is a campaign from the consumer perspective that's going to do that shaking. So we're going to take iconic images and put this big word over it that makes you stop and say, well, why'd they run that picture? Why is that big word there? And what's that arrowheady thing in the P? And, just get them to stop and look at it and to start to understand what we're talking about. Multicultural translations, obvious need to be there, but also a lot of the communications contextually, aren't just translations, but talking to the appropriateness of that message or that park for whatever ethnicity we're talking to. Oops. As we evolve, so that's kind of launch creative, right? And there's like 50 billion pieces like that where we just take these awesome pictures and put that word park over it. As we evolve the campaign, we get into what we call the mashups, right? I said that phase 2, we wanted to deepen the understanding of what the Park Service does, right? So it's not just about shaking up people's understanding, but then it's like deepening that understanding. So we shrink down the word park, and we've done these mashups to kind of bring in urban with rural, big with small. We were talking at lunch about, what's the worst thing we could do in this campaign is send everybody to Yosemite. Okay, they have too many people already. We want people to understand what's in their own backyards. They want to go to the smaller parks. We want to go to the less visited parks and get a more whole and rounded picture of all of what the Park Service does, not just 5 iconic parks out in the West. So you'll see more of this kind of imagery, digital, print, etc., content in phase 2. And again, multicultural, you can see there. But that kind of melding of the imagery we think is really cool. We're also, because we're developing content and putting this on a website, hoping that people are not only going to tell us their Find Your Park stories, but they also might do their own little mashups, and we're going to encourage that. So we get people involved. We want them to engage with the Park Service, engage with the parks, and with our campaign. We'll be doing some in-park messaging when people are in the parks, showing them how they can, talk and tell their Find Your Park story. As we move into 16, you'll see this kind of imagery, right? Very clever. I'm not the art guy. 100, get it? Centennial, but using the imagery of all the parks to tell that story. This is a group of people, and all of us are like this these days, right? It's not just millennials. We have no attention span at all. So the more we can iconically tell that story without, tens and 20 copy paragraphs, the better we're going to be, and the more impactful that campaign's going to be. So there'll be in-park messaging around the Centennial as well, 100 years of inspiring awe, but just consistently, like I said, refreshing that message so that people feel that, there's always something new and fresh going on there. So in the summer of 16, there'll be the Centennial Celebration events. It'll be in-park and community. We're looking for all of that local activation at that point. People will be sharing, we'll be celebrating those stories. We're not just going to collect the stories and then kind of feed them back on findyourpark.com, but we're going to incentivize people to, be in a contest. How does their story become one of, 10 or 20 featured stories that we will promote? We might help redo that story with some of our celebrity ambassadors to make it even bigger. So we're incentivizing people along with the fact of giving them the opportunity to share and, put out their message. As Alexa said, they want to share that and tell everybody how their experience was awesome. Additional activities, the video covers this, so I'm not going to linger there. But, there's a couple cool highlights. The Rose Parade, the entire theme of the parade in 16 will be the Park Service. Every float will have some kind of connection to the National Park Service, which is really cool. We talked about, and you saw a trailer for the IMAX film, okay? So that's out there and coming. So a lot of things are developing. Probably by the time we present this slide again in the beginning of 15, there'll be 50 more things on there because more people are getting excited about this, more people are getting on board. And we love it, okay, because we want people to get excited. We want them to help carry our message. And the more we can get that message out there in whatever form, we think the better for people's experience and awareness building of the Park Service and the campaign. So I'm going to turn it over. First, I'll ask if there are any questions. Question? Yes.
And I'm just wondering if that can somehow be integrated so that there's even more ties to the very iconic, recognizable things of the Park Service.
Yeah, there's a certain color palette and iconography that already exists within the Park Service. With them, each of the location maps have that black bar and stuff. So that's part of what's being incorporated here. Probably be more in the website and different things, but it's a great point. We have so much to work with, which is fantastic. When I do these types of projects, usually you're kind of making stuff up from the start, or how do I spin something that's really horrible? This is one of the coolest assignments ever because, we used the word authenticity before. Everything's so authentic, everything's real. You don't have to tell a different story than just what the story is, and people naturally connect with it. So it's a great point, and I have reams and reams of stuff I can show you as far as how the creative is developed, if you want to see afterwards. But yeah, I think that's a great point and something that's being taken care of or accounted for in the development. Question? that's the next section. But that's exactly it. I mean, the whole point and goal of today is to make you guys aware of what's happening, to make you understand the opportunities that are there, whether it's through licensing or just picking up logos or carrying that message. However, that's the conversations we want to generate from today and have those follow-ups. So at the end, if you want to talk one-on-one or after Hall's presented his stuff, you're clearer, awesome, but it can't be let me show it to you today and everybody go away. This is, and sounds, where's Angie? I sound like Neil now. This is the beginning of a conversation with you guys that needs to continue through the Centennial. So we really encourage all of the state associations, travel associations, to get involved, to carry that messaging, and we'll show you how you can do it. And we'll give you, in most cases, and now I'm stealing his slides, we will have toolkits. We will have the ability to give you actual materials for you to utilize on yourself in your own way. So we're trying to make it as turnkey as possible for all of you to pick it up versus, I'm sure you've seen efforts like this before where it's like, oh, I really want to get involved, but I've got to go through 50 steps and it didn't match my stuff and the whole bit. We want to make sure everything we give you is usable and that you're psyched to go use it because we're relying on you guys to help carrying that message. Make sense? Okay. It's up to you.
Hi, mic one. Oh, there we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Hall Carlo. I'm the account director on activation from GREY. So I think that was a great segue. Thank you. I think the next question is how do we get involved? And to Ken's point, it's going to need to be a discussion as we go through, but there are, I'm going back to the right. Opposite of beyond. Okay, so there are 2 tiers and 2 ways to do that. Leveraging the Find Your Park campaign through the toolkits and the existing assets that Ken and his team have worked for so long to put into creation and into production, which is now happening, which is so exciting. The other way to do that is to take that work and customize it to needs to suit what you have going on in your worlds and in your channels already. And GREY is here to help you do both of those things as well as the NPF and NPS. So finding your park creative, placed into appropriate NPF partner-owned channels through the toolkit. So what is the toolkit? The toolkit is going to be a widely distributed and available online package of materials that you can take and integrate into your own projects, your own channels, and into your platforms, essentially. It's a flexible set of materials, can be used by the NPS. They'll be using it as well, as a wide range of partners. Here's a key point. It can be used both in and out of park. We obviously need to be talking to those people who are not in the park already, so we want to help push them towards the park. It's been developed with a broad range of partner capacity and experience in terms of public relations and marketing. We're keeping both those 2 things in mind, and they will continue to be discussed throughout the toolkit. The phase 1, which is probably the next question, is when do I get the toolkit? The first toolkit will come out mid-November of 2014. It also is following a phased approach, 3 phases, with the second phase coming later on, but right before launch in February. Inside your toolkit, you will find the graphic identity style guide, which will let you take the logos and know how to use them correctly and with the most ease and effectiveness. A campaign overview, which will really allow you to speak intelligently about the objectives of the campaign, the strategies of how we're communicating our goals, and the timing of each individual piece as we move through the next 2 years. The summary of key partnerships. So Ken mentioned corporate and media partnerships. You'll get more information about those, who and how to get involved in those opportunities as well. And then tools and tips across how to activate some of these other channels that we're activating nationally, like public relations activation, digital, and in-park displays on a localized level, which again is really going to be the support for that umbrella campaign that we're trying to really push out. Again, like I said, phasing, phase 1, create, phase 2, invite, phase 3, celebrate. The first 2 will happen between now and launch. Create, you'll hit mid-November, just kind of ran over that. Invite, you're gonna get a second phase of your toolkit, which is much more specific. It will have much more specific guidance against all of those bullets that were on the last slide, with detailed guidance against PR, activation, digital, social, for you to use on the local level, because things will be a little bit more moving in the consciousness of the world. We'll know exactly what we're kind of pushing out and when, and we want to coordinate those efforts. And finally, celebrate. About this time next year, going into the Centennial year, we will bring out a 3rd round of the toolkit, which will refresh completely around the Centennial year, which is really that kind of birthday moment. Inside that toolkit, you will get banners, scalable posters, table tents, creative, and this is easily printable and can be used inside of multitude of opportunities for you. Which brings us to the second round, and this is the huge point of Ken's, that this is a conversation, this is a discussion, and all of this creative is customizable to fit your needs, to hit against what you already are doing, efforts that you probably have coming up that can be big, small, or in between, and we want to help you do that. So these are thought starters, and by thought starters I mean seeds, granule first ideas of things that you might already be doing that we want to be involved in. We kind of broke them out. Food establishments, really looking at every moment you're talking to your customer and how we can be represented there. So if you already producing signage, digital creative inside the food establishments, table tents on tables and menus, collateral that can be distributed at hand-to-hand at the point of purchase, on products. If you've got napkins, food containers, cups, these things can carry that message, these things can carry this message, and we want to be anywhere we can be in that realm. Point of sale we kind of covered. Same situation in terms of lodging accommodations. If we're looking at digital, physical signage on site, again, collateral that you're already distributing, if it can carry this message, if it can be tweaked in any way, we're here to help you do that. We're also here to brainstorm great ways to do that with you. Ads on hotel televisions that are already circling in, we can plug in our creative as well. We'd love to be there. And we can even go to do not disturb signs. Should be a creative message, I'm sure. Again, in services, this is a great one where I think there's a lot of creative opportunity. Signage, yes, looping signage. Boats signage, boat wraps, train wraps. We can really blow out and do big things here, and we're excited about those opportunities. I know hornblowers in the house that was talking to me earlier. Audio tours, again, we can help script into that, things like that. And then, again, point of sale, hand-to-hand moments. Again, these are the very small seeds of where we think this can go, and we want to talk to you about that opportunity and how we can grow it with you. This is my account information, or my contact information. So I don't know who's live streaming this, but please feel free to call me. I'm putting it out there in the biggest way I've ever done, which is exciting. I'll be on the train later, please. My mobile is right there. I really am here to take your calls, bounce ideas back and forth, put you in touch with the right person at Grey if I'm not it, put you in touch with the right person at the foundation or the service. Whoever you need to get in touch, I am happy to be that connector or help you come up with the next big thing we can do together. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues from M-Style who are going to go over the licensing program.
Thank you, Hall. My name is Amber Janis. I'm the Director of Development for M-Style Marketing. This is Stephanie Dowdle. Also with M-Style, we are heading up the licensing program for the Centennial in partnership with Grey and the assets they've developed and with the National Park Service. Basically what that means, are we making the tchotchkes, the souvenirs? No, that's not our capacity. We are kind of organizing this process. So as valued park partners, if you are creating merchandise in stores, either as a retailer, as a concessionaire, as a hospitality partner, partner, you know, what does that look like? What does that plan look like? We are a brand strategy and marketing firm that also specializes in licensing. Our bread and butter has been primarily sports, entertainment, and consumer products, so the NHL, FIFA, World Cup Soccer, Warner Brothers, DreamWorks. We've worked on the big consumer end, but we've also translated that effectively into licensed products for government brands as well. So we've worked with the United States Postal Service and the Army National Guard, and we're extending our expertise both in the consumer aspect and then taking it over here to the parks because, you know, as everybody's mentioned, this is a tremendous opportunity, and if you look at licensing, that's one of the best ways to communicate with a different demographic, especially one that's outside of your park. Stephanie's going to speak more specifically to how we can help you on an individual level, on a state level, on a park level, as a manufacturer or a hospitality person, but just in the large scheme of things, I guess you could say. What we're trying to do is take licensing and use that as an effective toolkit to get people into the parks and aware of the Centennial. So you've got millennials who are buying product, who are engaging with product in different ways than just buying a t-shirt off the rack. So what does that product design look like that's going to make that compelling, not just as a let's buy a Find Your Park t-shirt, but let me buy and create merchandise that is cool, that then becomes a walking, talking billboard for this program. So then you have people out talking about Instagramming, creating and buying cool merchandise in a variety of different product categories, some conventional, some not, and it's another way to start the conversation and then to extend it outside the parks and then hopefully drive traffic back in. But as to how licensing, and again, we can speak to whoever has questions about this later because this is kind of a behemoth of a topic on its own. Whoever is available, we are here all night to talk, but Stephanie's going to talk about how specifically licensing will apply to you on an individual level.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amber, for giving a brief introduction into M-Style marketing and licensing and why it is so important to the Centennial program. And you know, we're very honored to be standing here today in front of all of you because this is a very important group to the National Park Service and the National Park Foundation, and has been stressed many, many times in these previous presentations that this really is a conversation, and we want to provide to you all the resources that can make the licensing program and the Centennial program a very successful endeavor for all of us. So that's our main goal with this presentation, is to provide you with an overview, very brief, but hopefully we'll answer some questions and give you some direction for how to move forward. So with that said, we are going to provide the resources for you to be able to execute a licensing program pretty seamlessly. Our goal, as Ken mentioned, was to try and make this as turnkey as possible so that you're not having to pour resources into developing these programs. We're hoping that you can just pick up and run with it where we've left off. And what are those resources going to entail? Similar to what Hall mentioned, one of the main things that we're going to create is a specific licensing guide, retail guide, so that you will have all of the graphics and assets, patterns, any kind of signage that you may need that is customizable to your park and to your program that you are then able to implement through into the production of the actual product. Both this guide as well as the logo guide that Hall was mentioning will be available on an online brand asset management system, which will be available 24/7, 365 for everybody to download. As well, what's important about having it online is that we can very easily update it. And one of the important things about that is having trend forecasting services, which we also provide. Without going into too much detail about that, the importance of that, as anyone in the retail space knows, it takes a couple months to get the product actually on shelf. So if you're designing it now, you don't want to design what's cool right now. You want to design what's going to be cool and will sell in the future. So how do you do that is by looking into our crystal ball of trend forecasting, which we will provide to you. So all of these assets that we are going to have on this online brand management system, as well as any other customizable strategy solutions or creative solutions that we are here to provide for you, we are here as your partner, will be available online. So as we mentioned, we're going to be here all night. We're definitely going to be at the member reception. We would love to discuss all of these further with you, as well as you can just take a look up here at some of the initial program creative. This is just for presentation only, but we'll kind of give you a look and feel of what we're kind of envisioning for some of these products to look like, and for you to be able to customize these seamlessly into your own parks and programs. And this is our contact information. I believe this is also up on the National Park Foundation website. We have created our own dedicated email address to this. We are here for you and here to make this a very successful program together. So please, we welcome any and all feedback, and we would like to provide all the resources available to make this a successful venture together.
So I know that I am standing between you and the reception, as Dave always likes to say when we go at the end of the day. I don't want to get in front of your drinks, but I do want to just say, help us create this movement. This is an opportunity for all of us, and I know you know that, but we need your help. Please help us engage that next generation through the experiences we create, the opportunities we create, help them have a part of it, whether it's through Centennial products or help them see it through the Find Your Park campaign. So I just want to say in advance, thank you for your help. There's a great brain trust of people who are working really hard on this, and it's humbling to be part of them, as well as to think about all the power that it'll generate through this community as well. So thank you, Derek, for having us. We'll certainly take questions if you guys have any.
I think there's bound to be two questions. I'll kick it off. When we're talking about cups, napkins, logos on vehicles in parks,
Very
and when we're talking about the use of the channels these companies have outside the parks, the stadiums, for example, where professional sports are being played, is that available from the toolbox where they're going to be able to take items and actually put that to use?
Yes. Okay. And that's such a great point. And thank you for teeing that up. And Hall mentioned it. We're looking for people to do stuff. Here, hold that so I don't break it. In and out of park. Okay. So if you're, doing the concessions in Fenway Park, okay, and want to put this on napkins and cups and stuff, we will provide those logos and that ability. We'll give you all the stuff inside of the toolkit. So there's nothing, it's really a horrible thing to broadcast and actually say out loud, but there's nothing that's really off base, okay? The non-traditional especially is what we're looking for, okay? If you saw from my presentation, I've got traditional media, I've got the social media stuff going, we've got media partners. The more we can put this message in surprising places, the better. So all of those examples that you just cited, absolutely on the table, and we can help give you the right materials to get them to your vendors, your production companies, etc. So, we'd love to know what you guys want so that we have the right materials either embedded in that website already or that we'll do on a special order to get to you guys so you can fulfill those.
And just to keep going on that one bit, so will it come out of the toolkit? Maybe, maybe not. If you look at the toolkit and you see the logo and it's not enough, then call me and we'll get you what you need. Because it might be with some of those executions, you might need more creative, a different look of feel. Like Ken said, we have a huge library that is not included in the toolkit, and we want to make it great, so we can help you make it great.
Is the toolbox just available to be used? Do you have to sign a licensing agreement before you use the toolbox? And are there costs associated? And let's say there's no commercial value
Right.
for a company to put it on napkins and on cups that are at Fenway Park. It's not going to help their park business. So
No.
Is that something where that's going to be granted without a fee?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I love how you get right to the heart of things. Okay. Yes. We're looking for you guys to help carry that message. That is what we consider a relevant form of media. So there is no fee associated with that. If you have a special crazy request as far as materials, we might have to charge you for some kind of executional fee there, but it's, that's just the tangible stuff. What we will ask you to do is sign some type of an agreement so that, there's a clear partnership in this, okay? We don't want to just throw it out there and any Tom, Dick, or Harry, at the bait shop can pick it up and do something that competes with what you're doing. We want to have a certain sense of control as well as being able to provide you guys access and the ability to have something that you feel is cool and interesting for your constituents versus it just being for anybody anywhere in the world. Does that make sense?
It does. And let's go into the previous panel where we said we have a domestic market that's very interested in parks, the Latino market.
Yes.
Let's say we come up with some kind of a national sweepstakes that rewards Latino families with some kind. They tell us a story about a park experience at the Statue of Liberty or the Gateway, but the reward is taking them to the Grand Canyon or taking them to Glacier National Park. To try to do something like that. I mean, is that something you'd like to have offered to you?
Yes.
Yes. We'd love to be a
Yes.
part of the development of that because there's a lot of legalities around that type of stuff. But absolutely, you know, and I don't want to promise anything, but there's obviously other relationships the foundation and the service has, you know, so the more we can, really the foundation, so the more we can coordinate those efforts, we may be able to help with different partners inside of, you know, a sweepstakes or something like that. But, you know, call Hall or call me or call Alexa or Angie, you know, and we'll help guide that. We want those things to happen. You know, like I said, it's the non-traditional that's going to make this kind of cool. If everybody just takes this and runs a print ad, that's not going to be, you know, an effective use of what's available. Question?
This question is for Ken and Alexa, which is, if we already have an MOU with the Park Service, what agreement are we signing? Is it with your company? Is it with the Park Service? And is the Park Service okay with that?
I think we should just sort of step back and clarify. There are toolkits that will be available for free, for download, with materials to use, with no real further other steps. They are available to state tourism organizations. They are available to our concessioners, to our friends groups, to all of the partners that we work with widely. We absolutely want that to be as widely and as broadly available as possible. They'll be posted on a website where you maybe have to give your name and email address so we can track who's using it, and that's it. What would be requiring in terms of an agreement would be an agreement through the foundation, which M-Style is managing, for any commercial products, and that's that commercial license, the commercial program that Stephanie spoke so perfectly about and that we're so excited about. Beyond that, for groups in the room, and I don't think we necessarily have folks in the room here today who have fundraising agreements with the National Park Service, if you want to use any of these materials for fundraising, that is something that requires an existing fundraising agreement with us, but that's really more so for our friends groups. Does that help clarify a little bit? Okay.
Yeah. And I think the important thing that Alexa said is there'll be some system so we can track who has what, okay, whether that's, you know, some kind of signature or contract or something, just we need to know where this stuff is, and that just protects all of us. Question?
Simple, could you just walk us through as concessionaires? There's the 4.25% fee we're going to be adding to the retail item that we're supposed to sell. If we get one of our vendors that, I want to come up, and I want it to be the logo, but I want it to say my park money. So I go to my vendor and I say, this is what I want. Here's the logo. Now,
Yep.
where's that fee?
Turning it over to the other brain trust.
That's okay. So when you come in, you'll be taking a license to license that specific mark. And again, we will have an overall license available that will be just generic Park Centennial 2016. Then there will also be materials provided specific to each park. Or if you are a manufacturer or if you're a hospitality partner, whatever you need, we're going to make sure that you have those assets. And then again, yes, there is that 4.25% royalty payment fee that is there. That's only for products that are sold at retail in park. Out of park, that's a different conversation that we can have, you know, at a different time. And again, to the earlier point, if the product is not for sale and it's just being distributed, there's no fee on that whatsoever. But if you need specific materials to your park or your program, whatever that might be, we are more than happy to provide those to you.
So Amber, what's the example of that? Is that if they want to create some kind of uniform for their employees or a badge or something, they can access it, but there's no
If you want to
fee.
create a park uniform that says like 2016 Centennial and you have all of your park members or even people working at your retail station or in your hospitality program wearing, and it's not for sale, that's fine. We're going to give you that and you'll use those marks. We'll give you the guidelines for how those are used. But if you are now selling that in park or even outside of park, that's when the licensing agreement will come into place.
And outside the park, there'll be a larger fee.
Again, that's all depending on the distribution radius. The fee will generally be a little bit bigger, but it's depending on where it's going, who you're licensing it to, what product category you're in, and it just gets a little bit more granular there, which is why we're not delving into that, because again, it's very specific. But we know you guys are helping us build this relationship and helping us build this brand, and licensing is a really great way for us to do that. So we're going to work with you, especially as longtime valued partners of the Park Service. We're going to make this as easy and painless as possible because, it's just one more thing to add to. But we want to make sure that we're doing this consistently. As Ken said, when you're talking about licensing, again, we don't want to blanket this and just throw it out. We want to be protective of the brand and of the Parks brand because there is real value there. And a lot of people don't see a government entity as saying, oh, they take their brand for granted, or who's really going to buy this? I mean, you've seen the beautiful imagery and you've seen some of the things that we have planned coming up. The parks are an invaluable piece of American history, of American culture today, and it's just prime for another demographic to experience and explore it. And then, again, we can continue that growth through licensed product sales, through the advertising campaign to help really not only make the Centennial success, but to launch the parks into kind of a new generation and era. It does take more than a couple of months, and we're cognizant of that. That will be ready in November at the same time as basically the rest of the brand marks are. If we're doing anything customized, obviously that will take longer, but again, those are offline individual conversations, so please feel free to ask either Stephanie or I about that.
There.
One of the things that I think we all understand is frequency and reach that will build value in the brand.
Yes.
Obviously, having a Find Your Park bullet in all of the ads, print, video, all those, by all concessionaires would be a help in terms of just getting awareness of that. So
Absolutely.
creating potency for that.
Yes.
We do have some concern what does that drive people to? In other words, is it going to be sort of an actionable, can we do something where if it's on banner advertising on the internet, for example, that provides a link to findyourpark.org, and most importantly of all, what's there? Because frankly, the National Park Service website doesn't do concessionaires very much good. And,
No.
That's not a new story.
What you're going to find is findyourpark.com is going to drive people to a microsite, and microsite is the understatement of all time because it's going to house this community, and the community is going to be made up of all of the content that we're going to curate, so it's not just a dumping ground, but it's all the content from around the country and probably some foreign markets as well, of people who are contributing their Find Your Park stories, okay? So that's an aggregator for all of that. There's also going to be buttons in there on connecting to service. There'll be ideas in there on different challenges that are associated with the campaign. So it'll be a very active, vibrant site, not just a repository of stuff, but a way to get more involved, to find more things to do, to see more pieces of content, to interact with some of our celebrity talent that'll be integrating with us with the YouTube talent we mentioned earlier. So it's meant to house, and we keep using this word, and I think it's really important, to house the movement. Okay, so people will come to that, and hopefully they should feel engaged, they should feel a sense of connection, and it's going to be a place that we feel people are going to want to come back to. It's not going to be something that is just a dead zone, which is what I think, kind of NPS Gov is right now. So, sorry, didn't mean to be that mean. But, it's meant to house this content, it's meant to be active, it's meant to be vibrant, and it's meant to be able to shoot people out into other directions, to do more things, to find more opportunities, etc.
For instance, if I don't know how many national parks there are in California, but I want to see I want to find my park, but I don't know yet what my park is. Can I go to that website and you're going to be able to tell me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll show you not only what's in that area, but give you ideas on things to do in those parks, or take a Find Your Park challenge, that's happening in the park, or you can do yourself. Part of what we talked about earlier, remember, is we don't want to be prescriptive, but we feel we need to give people ideas of things to do once they get there to help plan their trips. So all of that will be contained within that site.
And I think everything on that site is designed to either be discoverable or shareable. So Ken mentioned the content, and I think that is huge and rich opportunity, and is certainly designed to be something that you all can engage in as well. So can you, as a entity, submit your Find Your Park story? Yes. Can we feature that? Yes. Is it something that you can then go onto the experiences page and type in your quiz and find your park that has exactly the program that you want to engage in? Yes. So I think as we see those themes of discoverability and shareability being so relevant to the demographics we're discussing, this web design is kind of on point.
Yep. Mimi, you had a question.
Yeah, as a friends group, we are always trying to give content without asking people for money. We like to do that at specific times.
Yes.
This would be a great way for us to give content to focus people, but I'm worried about the .com. Are they going to be hit up with money when they go to the site, or bombarded with marketing?
No, you won't be bombarded with marketing. There will be a connect point to the foundation, but there's not going to be a, hey, we've trapped you, give us money. That's not the intent. You can't build a movement, you can't build a marketing program based off of that. Our intent in this campaign, we talked earlier about creating awareness, right? The awareness in a well-organized fashion will create relevancy. That relevancy and awareness will drive people to engage with the brand. Go to parks, look at them on websites, however they get involved virtually, maybe go to findyourpark.com or whatever. All of that leads to what we believe, and you all know this better than I do, is a transformative experience. Once you get people there, you have them, okay? And that will lead to that next generation of giver, the people who want to give money, who want to volunteer, etc. This is a very thought out way of doing this. If we kind of bombard in after like 3 months of, hey, it's all cool content, give us money, it will blow it. And you can't recover from that, I mean, this is, like I said earlier, this is probably the coolest assignment I've ever had, but this is the one that makes me the most nervous, because if you blow it, it's not like there's another Super Bowl next year, This is 100 years we got to wait to do this over again if we do it wrong. So it's got to be done right, and it's got to be done very thoughtfully. And I think you'll see that as all of these pieces roll out. Any other questions? Oop. Yes, we have lots of metrics, and that could be another 2-hour presentation. But the awareness, the engagement, and the kind of advocacy of volunteerism or actually giving money, all of that has a whole battery of metrics. Like I said, it could be 2 hours, but think about very traditional brand type of metrics, a pre and a post campaign, different check-ins, like a brand tracking study throughout the length of the 2-year campaign, looking at the website, the engagement, the pass-alongs, the thumbs up, all of those different social things. How are people engaging with the campaign? So huge battery of stuff that I'm not sure how accessible we'll make that, but there'll definitely be points where we'll check in with folks and say, we're achieving goals and milestones, et cetera, or not. I think it's so important, especially in a very socially driven campaign, that we have those, because the success of that campaign is going to be made off of being able to make real-time adjustments to the messages, right? If any of you engage in a socially driven campaign, you might float 3 or 4 messages out there, and you're monitoring well, that one didn't pick up traction, but boy, they're all excited about Ice Bucket Challenge or something. So you start pushing that out more than some of the other ones. It's got to be managed on a very tight and timely way, or it's not going to be successful. So we've got a lot of metrics, we've got a lot of people who are a lot smarter than me, who'll be monitoring that and making those adjustments as we go.
It's associated with government. Of course it'll be better.
But it'll always be successful. Oh, I got one back there.
Any decision on or discussion around what happens after 2016 for five-year park?
Yes, like I mentioned earlier, we were building a big tent, right? It's meant to house a national campaign, grassroots campaigns, and the whole bit. That, as an idea, since day one, has been there is not going to be a stop at the end of 16. This is a platform for the Park Service, so it's meant to continue out for many, many years past. Now, there'll be a campaign life cycle where it just won't be relevant anymore and you'll need to refresh. But the intention of the Park Service, the foundation, if we have corporate partners, partners with yourselves, is we want this to continue past 16. If it dies at the end of that and everybody kind of goes back into the ways things have been done before, we'll have missed a great opportunity. You know, the advantage we have with this whole thing is the 16 Centennial gives us a platform to talk on a broader basis, right? So we need to leverage that while it's here, get people excited, and get them to be more consistent carriers of that message, consistent partners. So this is carried through for many years afterwards. But it is, if it dies at the end of 16, epic failure. Question?
I don't know if this is for you or for Alexa, but you said that once you get people there, if you don't get them back, then kind of lost the game. But
Right.
are you guys doing research on what people want when they get there? Like, is our interpretation right? Should we start adding different things? Are there supposed to be QR codes? Is there a way to share it? Or are you just kind of working with that?
User experience is huge, and again, she probably talk for the next 2 hours about that. But go ahead.
It certainly is. I think as part of this effort, we're also taking a fresh look at how we currently collect information in parks, and are we asking the right questions in order to understand what we need to do in the future. And I'm hopeful that as part of this process, we're going to have an opportunity to reduce some of that metrics in parks so that we'll be better informed about all of that.
Let me make an observation and also maybe just invite you to think about something. I don't think this kind of a presentation could have existed 4 years ago. To be perfectly candid, the Park Service was so afraid of the term marketing, promotion, outreach, that they would have, number one, never let us say this here at the Department of the Interior, and number two, they would have made sure that they were in Alaska so they didn't have to watch it. They wouldn't be telling their people around the country to watch this live stream presentation and hear the director respond to some of the ideas that were here. So I think it's great. And I love the fact that, between Gray, Park Foundation, Park Service, we're doing this. So let me make an observation. Alexa's role is for the Centennials. What the Park Service really needs is a chief marketing officer that allows us to talk these things that we haven't had anybody to talk to about it. They didn't have the knowledge, and frankly, they didn't feel there was any reason for them to take that on. There's a great opportunity. The Director of Tourism spot is open right now in the Park Service. And I would just hope that Gray, the foundation, all the organizations in this room would help to encourage the director and the secretary to grab this opportunity and convert that Director of Tourism job into a CMO job, so that in fact we can really have legs behind this. So, enough said. We'll make a recommendation, but I think it'd be very helpful if you learn a little choral speaking. I would suspect it would make your job working with the Park Service a little bit easier to have somebody that understood the words we're talking about.
Sure, absolutely. We couldn't agree more, and we've had that conversation a couple times. And if John was here, he would look at me and say, who would you put up to say that? Because I say that all the time. It's the examples I was giving you about the Matt Lauer and the NBC and the whole bit. We have to think about how to market ourselves, and think about how incredibly powerful this brand can be when it's not, doing horrible things that people are uncomfortable with. It's just recognizing, remembering the time and the place to put the arrowhead in front, to say Park Service, to get some acknowledgement of what we do. Because when you tell people the story, they're so amazed. You know, it's not 401 units, it's all the programs and the trails. You know, it's a great story, but you're dead on, you know. And the logo that was just up there, I'll tell one quick story and then you can all go drink, because I need a drink too. That 2016 logo, we put on a t-shirt for presentation, right? We were trying to sell the logos and we had all the, and I actually had that t-shirt, so I kept it and I wore it here on Easter this year. And we went for a walk, we went over to the Lincoln Memorial and I had a jacket on and I took the jacket off and I was mobbed by people. Mobbed by people. Where'd you get that? Where can I get that? What is that? Tell me more about it. A ranger interpreter asked me to send him one. Okay? People are excited about this, about the Centennial, about the ability to have that physical connection with the brand. And I think you guys especially will understand that that's never happened before. There's never been an ability for that to occur before. Now's the time. So thank you guys for your attention today. We will be at cocktails. We will answer more questions, but we appreciate the forum and we're excited to help you guys out.